Good morning. One of the things that we knew at the beginning when we started looking for property in Placer County, California, is we didn't want to be in an area that was a lot of trees, mostly grassland, so we can keep it trimmed and because of the risk of fires. And I was born and raised here, and I remember having grass fires when I was a kid was a thing. It didn't happen often. I'd say maybe once a summer we would have some type of grass fire, but back then there was very little homes. It was mostly grassland and foothills with the oak trees. And so now that we're looking for property, we want mostly grassland. There's quite a bit of area that's Placer County that's mostly filled with oak trees. Which is once they start catching fire, it just goes. And so we want to make sure we stay away from that. So that's been an issue, and that really eliminates, I would say, shrinks the size of the area of where we can find property. And then with the fact, like I explained on the last video, where we need to have two lots. It's too expensive to split a lot in Placer County, $100,000 and 2-year process just to split. So as we're looking, we have a gentleman who's an insurance agent at our office across the way. And he was telling me about insurance and insuring these properties out in the country, whether it be grassland or tree lined. And it's very expensive. And a lot of the insurance companies have left California. And the reason for that is the governor years ago, or just a couple of years ago, put a limit on how much an insurance company can raise their premiums. And because of that, the insurance companies were leaving because they couldn't afford to stay in California because they couldn't raise the premiums to the point where it would cover all these wildfires that we're having in California. So a lot of people who had homeowners insurance for 10, 20, 30, 40 years lost it because the company just did not renew when the renewal date came up. So California has created a California Fair Plan. It's an insurance company by the state. Is basically they're insuring these homes that cannot be covered. And so if we bought this property out in Placer County, out in the country, we would have to go with the state fair plan. And so the agent across the hallway was very nice. And he said, give me a parcel number. So I gave him a parcel number of a property we were kind of looking at. And he started doing an application for me because the thing about the fair plan in California is it's a la carte. Like every little thing, if you want that insured, you have to pay extra for it. It's not just homeowners insurance, fire insurance like what we're used to, and you're covered for a certain amount valued at your house or whatever. But this is definitely a la carte. So he started asking me these questions about do you want the debris taken? When you have a fire and your house burns down, you have a lot of debris, and the state considers it to be hazardous. And it just can't be any company coming to haul it away. It has to be done through the state. You have to have a permit for it to make sure it's done correctly. And so one of the questions on the insurance plan for California is, do you want that to be covered, that cost? It's very expensive. And I said, of course, I want that covered. I want that part of my homeowner's insurance. So he said, okay, and that adds up. And then he said, do you want your concrete driveway covered? I'm like, well, in a fire, that's not really going to be damaged. He said, yeah, in a major fire like that, it would be damaged and you'd have to replace it. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to add that. And then he says, do you want your fence? And he's just started going down the line of everything that you would assume, your pool, your landscaping, and you don't think there's a lot of money in it, but that stuff is costly to replace. So that was an eye-opener for us. And then also, and going back to the debris situation, there was a lady on YouTube that right after the Palisades fire, she was the trainer on Biggest Loser. Remember that show where the trainers came in and they helped people lose weight? Well, the trainer, I guess, had bought a house down in Southern California and she lost it. She said it took a year to get the permit to remove the debris. She said it was horrible because what happened, she had a swimming pool in her backyard and some of the wild animals jumped in the pool at the last minute, whatever, and of course they died. But all of that stayed in the pool for a year until they got the permit to remove it. Now, I know that the governor and the government of California has expedited a lot of this process with the big fire that just happened in LA. And so it's gotten, I think it's going a little bit better, but it's just something I don't think you would want to experience. And the people who say it's just devastating. So, anyways, I just want to share that information about the insurance because it's a factor. It's definitely a factor here in California. And so we are currently starting to look outside the state and to the areas that are three of the areas we're looking for is, of course, Oregon and Washington. They also have a higher fire situation than the other states in the country, but it's less than California. And they do brush cutting and they do maintain their forest, whereas California likes to keep a natural habitat, and so they don't come in through the forest and clear out. That's been the biggest issue, is California does not do that. Oregon, Washington does. So there's a little bit more control in those states. Plus, it's cooler and there's also more water. There's a lot more rainy weather. So I think we're looking at Oregon and Washington for property. We do have a lot of family in Oregon, which is a possibility. And then Vermont, of all places, I came up with that because I was just looking at what some of the best states to live in. And Vermont came up always consistently in the top five. And then my youngest daughter lives in Pennsylvania, and if she had any place to live, wanted to live, she would want to live in Vermont. So that got us looking at that. In fact, we're going to go to Vermont in next month and just check it out. So that's our update for today. And roadblock number 3 is fire and insurance.